Daniil Dubov was the second of Magnus Carlsen in the recent World Championship match against Ian Nepomniachtchi. And by the way, he was also part of the 2018 team that won against Caruana. So he is not new in the team, and it probably shouldn't have been a surprise for the Russians that he would help Carlsen. The thing was that, of course, it was secret, but also that Dubov is a Russian. And can you help your own countrymen, your other people against your own countrymen in the World Championship match? Well, Dubov was pretty clear about the issue. Like he said, first of all, he helped him in the last World Championship match. Second of all, who could refuse to work with the best player in the world, Magnus Carlsen? Very good arguments. I think patriotism in Russia probably says something otherwise, and maybe Dubov will not be in the team anymore in Russia. I don't know if they will forgive him. It seems like they were pretty harsh on him. Anyway, this Dubov dude is pretty cool. I played him once in the Bundesliga, and I thought he was rather arrogant, but also impressed with his style. He was like, I can do like this, and he has sort of a sense to the way he was playing that was very impressive. His openings ideas are really impressive, and I'm surprised that he has not improved more. He's still stuck in the early 2700, and I thought he would move up to 2760 or something. But of course, there's still time. He's only 25. By the way, the headline for this one, Dubov is the dude, is because he's sort of, the way he's talking, the way he's approaching the game is reminding of the dude from The Great Lebowski, a cult movie that I have seen many times and I like a lot. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I can recommend it. Anyway, we're going to see a game with Dubov where we see that he's both instructive, creative, and deadly, and it's a good game. So instead of just showing where I managed to scrape a draw against him in the Bundesliga after being totally outplayed, we're going to see him from the recent European Championship. He's black against Tamaz Banusz, typical Hungarian strong grandmaster, strong technique, very solid chess. Maybe not that original and not so many ideas, but in general just good handcraft. B5, and that's where we have Dubov coming in here. He's saying, okay, let's mix it up against this Banusz guy. I want to beat him. I'm 27, he's 26, and I'm a much better player. And by the way, I think Dubov thinks he's much the better player against most people he's playing against, and that's kind of cool that you just say, okay, they're just bad. Okay, Magnus Carlsen, I'm just going to beat that guy. Anyway, I think it was okay for Dubov to help Magnus. You should not have sort of any obligations in that regard. You can have it on the national team, but on your own professional level, that's none of the country's business, so to speak. But I can understand that some people are offended by this, but in general, I don't mind that much. It's not Russia against the world. It's Magnus Carlsen against Nepomniachtchi. And anyway, let's see. And it's a double fianchetto with the fianchetto, or what's called, with this pawn here, which introduces some interesting things. Anyway, I'm not sure I really like this e3 move. It weakens the white squares and sort of doesn't do anything good, because black usually would like to defend it with a6 anyway. c4. C5, D4, and that's already, now we're getting some serious pawn weaknesses on white side. On the other hand, he's getting some development, and we see these are hanging pawns. they're in generally weak, but if they cannot be attacked, they can also be strong. They will give white a space advantage. Black immediately plays d5, white goes c5, and does have a protected pass pawn here. That is in general good, but of course this pawn is not gonna, white is not going to be able to exchange everything and then go into an ending with this pawn. So it's also a weakness in the middle game that you sort of, your only asset is this pass pawn. On the other hand, if we go back, we see that there's no real option, because taking here would just leave this pawn here horribly weak. Okay. And black, of course, immediately goes to attack this pawn here, and we see that he's aided rather well by this. And Dubov is very dynamic, so he will go for this move, which is very interesting regarding this pawn. And if white takes on e4, black will for sure get a lot of compensation on the white squares. And we have another issue here. The bishop is going to land on this diagonal very soon, targeting this guy down here, and it's already going the wrong way for white, because this was not the point, and this is already it looks like, and this, by the way, okay, this is where we see that Dubov is a world-class player, because always in this position you usually take with the knight, but it turns out that it's not necessary here, and that's not what's really going on. So we see here that after this move and this move, this pin here is much more interesting, and white's bishops are all bad, and he's already in some sort of trouble. He takes, and that's what I think Banusz would always just take, and take here. And by the way, taking on e4 is not possible. This pin will win something, so he goes g4, but that was probably bad. He should probably just move the bishop and accept that that there will be some exchanges and so on. And bishop f5. Okay, I'm just gonna show you here. This position is very interesting. It looks like white is fine. He's got bishop pair, slightly more space. He does have a pass pawn. It could be weak, but it's a pass pawn. But there is also some slight annoyances. And by the way, this bishop here is not strong. And we see this with this move. And this was really cold shower for Banusz, I'm sure, because first of all, he's losing the bishop pair. Second of all, he's actually losing because he will be sitting with a bad bishop against a good knight. Because white cannot avoid the exchange. The thing is, this is not possible due to this move, and it's all over immediately. So you have to exchange, or you didn't have to, but and here we see this bishop and these two pawns here. I'll make them red. They are weak. All white's pawns are weak. Black structure is not fantastic, but his knight is great on c6. And the way he wins the endgame is very instructive. I really like this. Bishop a1, had to do something about the pin before rook to d2. Rook b5, hitting the pawn, and improving the position of the pawns in case white is going to exchange this one. Then this b pawn will be nice, and this will be a new weakness. It's still a weakness, but it will be an even bigger weakness. And winning a pawn, there is here is going to be lost. e3, take, and this was interesting because Banusz is a strong technical player, and he went for this ending where black is temporary a pawn up, But what counts for white is that there are pawns on opposite sides, but there's no free pass pawn anywhere. Anyway, if white was allowed to sort of activate his king very quickly, he might be able to hold this, but it's black to move, and he has this great move, f6. Not only is he challenging the pawn, he's also opening a much better path for the king to become active. Take e5. And that was the whole point, improving the pawn structure, getting rid of the problem, and just going out here and here. Now this position is interesting. White's king is very active, and I'm sure that Banusz thought that he was probably fine here. Unfortunately, he's definitely not, due to these pawns here. And we're going to see some very instructive example of how difficult it is for a bishop to defend in these positions. That the bishop is often a bad defender. This is an obvious move, active king, going for the knight, and after that we would like to attack the pawn. So here we go, f4, take. Okay, so we have equal material, and here comes the real nasty move. White was of course hoping for something e takes, and a4, and he will be able to win the bishop and maybe even the a pawn, but white will be in time to go to the king side, and we'll have these two against each other, and it will be a draw. But here comes the very annoying move, f3. First of all, the threat is very clear. It's e3, and if take, then the pawn queens. Bishop e1 is not possible after e3 because of knight d3. So e3 is a serious threat. Bishop e1, and here I was curious. I thought, is white getting out here? This a pawn looks strong, but this is still on the initial square, while this is very close to queening. So let's pave the way, blocking the pawn and getting ready for this move. King d5. We have time, and here the big problem is, of course, that the king might even go up. He went here, and here comes the really unpleasant move, king c6, just blocking everything. And the thing to notice is that this means the pawn will queen. So after this move, white gave up. How could there be? It could be something like this. And what to do now? You don't have time for the pawn, and after this simply comes this move. So but please notice this move, knight a3, what a great move by Daniil Dubov. And I suspect we will see much more of Dubov in the future. He has an original style. There was a reason why Carlsen invited Dubov to the team. And that was because at that time he was a big expert on the Sveshnikov that Carlsen used with great effect against Caruana, but also that in general Dubov has a lot of ideas. He's he's an entertaining, dynamic style, and is very creative. And that's what you need in a team where you have to generate some ideas that's not just the computer, but also from yourself. This was TM Talks with a little bit about Mr. Dubov. I hope you liked this, and if you did, remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.